In this video, we'll be talking about the International System of Units, or shortly known as the SI System International. So, what is International System of Units? These are the standard set of units that we use all around the world in order to measure the physical quantities. Now, back in the ancient times, people used the length of arm or the grain of rice, wheat, or anything to measure length and mass respectively. So there were errors in this because, as you know, different nation use their own set of units, and when it comes to as the unit of length, they used the length of the arm. So the length of your arm can vary from person to person, as well as the grain of rice can also vary differently. So these were not accurate units to measure these physical quantities. So just let me write it down here. In ancient times, people used length of hand, length of arm, then grains of rice or wheat in order to measure the length or measure the mass. So it was a pretty inaccurate. It varied from person to person, and it created many errors. So when different nations tried to trade with other nations or other countries, it became a real problem because they needed a set of units, that a, a standardized set of units, so they can use to everywhere all around the world. So it became a very big problem at that time. So in trading, obviously you are trading goods or another stuff, and as well as information, as well as knowledge, you can say, the scientific data. In physics, we use a lot of units like meter, newton, second, hertz. So in order to convey that meaningful information, they had to use standard units, but there were no standard units at that time. So it created many confusions and errors in trading. Just like writing it down. In trading and in scientific information. So to remove that problem, to solve this big problem, in 1960 in Paris, let me write it down first. In 1960, Paris. Oh, sorry about that. In 1960 in Paris, the 11th General Conference on Weights and Measures established the standardized set of units in order to measure these physical quantities, and that standardized set of units were called as the SI, or shortly known as System International. So who was it? The 11th General Conference on Weight and Measures. 11th General Conference on Weights and Measures. Thus, the SI, or System International, was born, was came into being. So the System International is built upon three kinds of units. Three major units, the group of units, make the System International, or SI. So what are those three big groups? We will talk about it now. I think I'll choose the green color here. So these are the base units, then supplementary unit, supplementary units, and then derived units. So base unit, just like base quantities, the base units are chosen by convention, and through them all other units are defined. So from these other the units are derived, just like in derived units. So there are seven base units. There are seven base units. And then we have supplementary units. They are geometrical units and they are dimensionless units. There are two of them, which is radian and straight radian. And then we have derived units. There are 22 units of it. And derived units are the units that are derived from base units. We use base units in order to derive the derived units, hence they are known as derived units. Now the thing is that the supplementary units were actually removed in October 1995. In October 1995, removed. They were removed and they became a part of the derived units. So there are 22 derived units, including the supplementary units. That's why there are 22. Now supplementary units are now part of the derived units. So the main goal of the System International was to standardize these set of units all across the world. So you might be thinking, well, I every country in the world has now adopted this system, right? Um, Kinda it is, because it is true that every country has adopted it, but there are only three countries in the world that haven't adopted this system, and these countries are. Let me write it down. I think I'll choose red. Okay. First one is the United States. And then we have Burma, also known as Myanmar. And then we have Liberia. Now, these three countries are the ones that haven't adopted the SI system international. Um, you cannot say that they haven't totally adopted this system, because they have adopted the system, but they haven't made it official. Like when it comes to the United States, of course, they trade, etc., everything, even their signs include miles and then feet, yard, etc. But when it comes to scientific measurements, United States also use the SI units. So they don't totally reject the system international. They use it, but they haven't made it officially. They haven't made it official. All right. Now let me give you some example to try to explain why we had to standardize these units. Let me give you a general example, and then we will go on continue to a bigger one. So let us say that, let's say you have visited someone, okay, and they offer you a cup of tea. All right, let me draw a cup of tea. Oh, this is, please don't mind my drawing. It's kind of, okay, let's say this is a cup cup of tea. Wait a minute. Um, I need to improve my own. I need to improve my drawing though. Now, they offer you a cup of tea. Okay, now you tell them that if you are adding sugar, then please only add 1 teaspoon. 1 teaspoon. Let me write it down. 1 teaspoon of sugar. 1 teaspoon of sugar, right? And they're gonna pour 1 teaspoon of sugar in the tea, right? What if you tell them just put 1 spoon of sugar in it? Now that can be any spoon, right? It can also be the tablespoon. Okay, it can also be the spoon that is bigger than this is tablespoon. So what will be the consequences if you don't tell them about the teaspoon and just say instead in just say spoon instead of teaspoon? Well, the consequence will be only small, right? Your tea will only get sweeter, right? These are the consequence. Only you haven't told them that just pour 1 teaspoon of sugar. All right, this is the consequence. What is the consequence? That the tea will be sweeter, right? Now let's say that a consequence cost to you about that consequence cost to you about 193.1 million US dollars. Let me remove the point here. 193. Yes. What if that consequence cost you about $193.1 million? This is why the standardization of units of measurement is really important, because in it happened to NASA that there were error in the system in the measuring units, and they lost about $193.1 million, all because of the because there was a fault, there was misunderstanding in the unit of measures. So in September of 1999, September of 1999, the NASA um, NASA Mars Climate Orbiter. So in September 1999, the NASA Mars Climate Orbiter crashed on Mars just because of this little problem. So where what how this problem occurred? Well, the maker of the satellite, was Lockheed Martin. So Lockheed Martin made the satellite, and they made the software configuration, they made all the configurations in English units instead of the SI units. But NASA thought that the units were the SI units. They thought that they configured the settings in SI units. They thought it was SI unit. So the problem came in the thrusters. The problem came in the impulse. So what is the impulse? Impulse is known as the effect of a force acting over time, not per time, acting over time. So impulse will be force delta t. So this is the impulse. So they about the impulse was about the thruster firings. They wanted to calculate the impulse. So what happened here? The Lockheed Martin, according because the software settings were according to the Lockheed Martin's English units, so the impulse was in according to English units pound force seconds instead of the SI, which is, for the unit of force is Newton, and then time you have seconds. Mm, the NASA thought it was in Newton seconds. The impulse was calculating in Newton seconds, but actually it was in English units, that is 4 seconds. And that was the main reason why the satellite, the orbiter, crashed on Mars on September 1999, and that cost them about 193.1 million US dollars, all because of one single mistake, and that was in the units of measurement. The creator, the manufacturer Lockheed Martin, used English units, but NASA thought that they made the orbiter the settings in SI unit. So that became a major reason, the major disaster, the major error in the crash of the NASA Mars climate orbiter. So that is the reason why we had to make standard set of units to avoid errors, confusions. So that's it. I hope you have found this video informative, and I'll try to upload videos frequently. And thank you for listening to this lecture, for watching this lecture, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.